Welcome to the Ink and Pen Adventure Podcast with your host, Lori Ann.
I'm ready for an adventure. It's time to dive into mystery. Time to learn all that I can be. And I hear it calling me. I feel my soul is breaking free. I'm lit up with possibility.
Are you ready for your next adventure?
Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Lori Ann, your host of Ink and Pen Adventures podcast, and I apologize for being away for a couple of weeks, but I have come back today to talk to you a little bit about why. It's called travel fatigue, and we will get into that in just a moment. I hope you are doing well, and I hope your adventures have been satisfying and exciting, and let's get started. So I say travel fatigue. It can mean a number of things, but in general, it often means that you can feel exhausted or less excited about doing things when you are traveling, or about the desire to travel because maybe you've traveled too much. Maybe a trip was particularly stressful. Maybe trip was particularly exhausting. Then this could be any sort of trip, a leisure trip, a work trip, a family trip. So I'm going to talk about a couple of the things that go through my head when I think about travel fatigue and how it manifests and what I'm going to do about it, because it does happen. We have traveled a lot in the last 10 years, more than I think we ever expected to. And sometimes more than really was sustainable at times, due to being gone a lot from home and cats, truthfully, work, time off, and things like that, disrupting home schedules. And that can sometimes be good because it can help you get out of a rut or a routine that maybe you've fallen into. But it can also sometimes disrupt them to the point where you come back home and you're a little lost as to how to get the momentum going again. So a definition of travel fatigue is a deep weariness and disengagement when you've been traveling, either for an extended period of time or for many trips over a length of time. It manifests, and it could be apathy or disinterest in activities that normally would excite you when you are traveling. And maybe it's that you always go to the same places when you go to a location now, instead of trying something new. Maybe you don't really go visit the attractions anymore because you've been there too often, or because you just don't really feel like leaving the hotel. It's a nice resort and you kind of want to stay there. And there's really nothing wrong with a vacation that is actually a vacation where you don't do much beyond relaxing. Nothing wrong with that. That's not what this is really about. This is when you go and you don't feel like doing anything, or you don't feel like going. We've had that happen a couple of times on our own here. I've had trips planned up to the last minute. We weren't really sure whether we were actually going to go because we've been known to not many times. And so I think, to me, that is our definition of travel fatigue. It's exhausting to pack. It's exhausting to get on the road and either fly or drive where you're going to go. It isn't rewarding the way it may have been before. That, to me, kind of screams travel fatigue. When you travel, you are much more alert than you are at home often, because you maybe are in a new surrounding, or even if you're in a place that you have been a lot, you're still you've got a new routine. You've got new things that you're doing on a daily basis. And maybe you're unsure about the safety of the location. Maybe the logistics are a little out of reach, where you think you know what you're going to do and you get there and it's totally different than when you expected. First time I went to London, and this was 2010, so the internet resources were much less than they are today. I was nervous about, it was winter. That was the first part. I was nervous about the weather. I didn't know what to expect. I kept having to translate the Celsius to Fahrenheit and getting it, thinking it was warmer or cooler than it was going to be. How am I going to pack for that? how am I going to get places because it's winter and it could snow and I could be cold and then I'm going to go inside where it's going to be warm, and how am I not going to get sick? Well, just you name it. First time to London, it was seriously stressful. It was very, very fun. And once I got there, I got the hang of it really fast. But prepping for that, if I hadn't been so excited about going, I probably would have had a little bit of fatigue happening, because that got all a little stressful. And even when I went back a couple of years later, and then a couple of years later after that, I still spend an inordinate amount of time prepping for it in order to reduce some of these stressors that happen when you travel, especially when you travel internationally. So those can be, maybe it's a flight anxiety. Maybe you have a flight anxiety already. Flying isn't your favorite thing, and you just know you have to do it if you want to go anywhere beyond about, 6 or 10 hour drive. Maybe it's that you enjoy flying a lot, but it's a long flight, like from California to, say, New Zealand. That's a long flight. Sometimes I think it's to the tune of 16 hours. And so, or maybe it's a series of flights, because I've heard it takes, like a flight in 24 hours or something to get to Bali from California. So that can cause stress. Planning stress. You're here, you're trying to get it all organized. What are we going to do? Where are we going to eat? Where are we going to go? How much is it going to cost? What kind of money you get my point. The list goes on. Long layovers, it can kill a travel momentum to have to sit in an airport for more than an hour and a half or so, which, gives you time to get to your location, use the bathroom, get some water, maybe grab a bite to eat, depending on the airline you're flying. And if it's longer than that, then what do? You kind of lose a little energy. Delayed flights, which we have been seeing happening all over the place these days. That's frustrating. Often it can induce anger or any extreme emotions like that, because maybe it was canceled or maybe it was delayed a whole day. We were going to Hawaii. Our flight was delayed almost 8 hours, which means we lost the entire first day. And truthfully, they didn't really care very much. They didn't care very much, because it says right on your ticket that, we could delay you. And then a lack of sleep. That's another one, that your sleep patterns get disrupted. You're in a new location. You're in a different bed. Maybe you are with or without a partner. That can cause sleep disturbances as well, which then, of course, leads to fatigue in general. We're not even getting into jet lag. If you are flying anywhere where you're changing time zones of more than about 2.5 to 3 hours, it can get pretty tough to battle that sort of jet lag. When I do go to Europe, I often plan that first day to be pretty mellow, so that if I need to rest in the daytime, I can. But I try not to, just because I try to get on the schedule when I go that far, because that's a good 8-hour difference. When I go that far, I get on that schedule. When we go to Hawaii, we tend to stay on California time, because it just means we're getting up at 6 instead of 9. And now we got the whole day ahead of us. But all of that switching up, all of that changing, you're eating different food, you are eating, you're drinking different water or different drinks, you're drinking more coffee, more alcohol, less alcohol, more sugar, less sugar. All of that can really cause some serious stress on the body. And often the benefit of the travel is getting away, doing something new, having new experiences. And so it often offsets, more often than not, it offsets the sort of causes of stress or anything like that, because you're there and it's exciting and fun. But when you've traveled a lot, business travelers face this a lot. It isn't exciting to go to the airport when you go every 2 weeks or every month and you're gone for 5 days at a time. It can get really old. My brother traveled a lot for his job, and he didn't want to see the inside of an airport for a long time, when he didn't have to travel as much like that anymore. And then culture shock. Sometimes you're going to a completely different land with a language you maybe don't speak or don't speak very well, with food that might be different than what you've expected or what you've eaten. And even your own country's version of that food often is very different than what it is in that country. But those types of culture shocks, maybe it's the way people people behave. That can be, you got to be aware of it. You've got to be on your toes to stay up with it, and not come across as an arrogant traveler of your home country. I'm not going to speak about Americans because we unfortunately do already have our own reputation. I try really hard not to be that person when I travel, and to me that is also understanding the culture so that when I do go there, I am not facing as much of a culture shock as if I hadn't done my research. Maybe this shows up in that you're feeling tired or sad, or maybe you're alone or feeling lonely, even though you're in a new destination with people around you all the time. But you can also have a lack of motivation where, like I said, maybe you just stay in your hotel and you paid all this money to get here and you're just exhausted. And it's not the kind of exhaustion that can be alleviated by getting out and doing stuff. It's where you really just need to rest, and maybe it would have been better to not travel, but at the same time, that's not always an option. And so how do you manage travel fatigue? The other thing that happens, and that is sort of a sign and symptom, is that things that normally wouldn't bother you at home bother you on the road. So a slight delay at home, that's fine. A slight delay on the road, devastating. You can't get the food order you want at home, you find somewhere else to go because you know you're home and you know what's around. You're on the road, you were counting on that, could be devastating. Now, these are heightened emotional states. A little, if you can self-regulate, if you can recover a little bit often, you can get past it and get right back to enjoying your trip. But travel fatigue can also make you really feel like not traveling anymore. Or at least for a while. And we've come in and out of that a number of times in the last couple of years, even since we got started traveling again after the pandemic. We find ourselves excited to go and going and doing the same things over and over again when we repeat locations. We went to Hawaii. We've been to Hawaii a number of times since the end of the pandemic. And this last trip, we finally said, we need to do some new things. Because we come here, I've done that. And then we don't do them, or we just do the same things over and over again. So this time we did a couple of different things, and it was really exciting and it was exhilarating. It excited us to be traveling again. We just went to Disneyland. I'm kind of done. I know. Don't tell my kids, right? But it was fun. We had a good time. We had some really beautiful moments, some great character moments with my granddaughter. But I've done it. I don't need to spend that kind of money on eating that food right now. I don't need to spend that kind of money on traveling down there right now. We're driving because flying is not cheaper. And then you have to rent a car. You have to get to the airport. You have to get from the airport to the hotel and all of that. And it just kind of makes me think, okay, well, maybe I just need a break. And that to me screams travel fatigue. And that might be Disneyland travel fatigue. And that's absolutely fine. And if I choose that I don't really want to venture down there as often, which is fine. We're coming into summer. We don't tend to go during summer anyway, because it just gets crazy crowded and it's hot for LA. So some of the ways that I look to recover from travel fatigue, well, the first one is to stop for a while, stretch it out a little longer. If you're a weekend warrior and you love to go on a 2-day trip on a regular basis and they're not as much fun as they used to be, they're more work than they used to be, maybe don't go for a couple weeks. Maybe take a month off. Maybe if you are a twice a year traveler, or maybe you travel longer distances once every 2 years, right? Start to take a look at what it is about it that's exciting you. And this is just what I do, by the way. This is no scientific anything at all. And I am not a therapist or a coach in that sense. These are what work for me. I take a look at our calendar and I think, oh, finally, I have a few months to stay home. Now, this doesn't mean I won't take a 1-day trip somewhere like to San Francisco, or maybe a 2-day trip to Tahoe. This means that I'm not going to go to LA. I might go to Portland, and that's a family affair. We're not going to go to LA. We're not going to go to Palm Springs. We're not going to fly to Hawaii. We're not going to do any of that for a few months because, to be truthful, I'm tired. So slow down. That's the first thing. Slow down. Considering adjusting that pace. Maybe that's the frequency. Maybe that's if you do go to on a like 7-day trip, you stay in one place. Tours, hopping, hotel hopping or park hopping, or trying to see 7 national parks in 7 days is probably too much. Changing locations can cause stress, so slow it down. You're going to go to the Grand Canyon, go to the Grand Canyon. Don't also try to do all of the parks in the southwestern United States. You're going to go to Yellowstone and you want to go to Grand Tetons. Make sure you give yourself enough time in each location to truly enjoy it and also take a break. But that also means slowing down your frequency of your trips. So if you're looking at traveling every 3 months because you have the time, you have the money, and you can do it, but it isn't exciting you, maybe push it out, travel every 6 months, and maybe go for a little bit longer time. Self-care. Do always take care of yourself. The unplugging from your digital life, the new food, the new rest times, they can be both a benefit and a burden. So think about prioritizing hydration, big time. Drink your water, drink your water, drink your water. And if you have to buy water, buy it from a store like a Target or a Costco, where you can get bulk water for much cheaper than spending $6 per bottle from the hotel gift shop, right? And if you don't trust the tap water, that's completely understandable. Then if you would rather do that, then get yourself one of those bottles that will filter it for you. No matter where you are, you'll have clean water to drink. Rest. Don't stay up super late. Don't get up super early. Don't change too many things about your rest patterns unless, like when we go to Hawaii, I said we just stay on California time. We haven't really shifted anything. We go to bed at 10 and we get up at 6 instead of going to bed at midnight, getting up at 8. Right? So prioritize that. Make sure you're eating. And not just eating well, eating it all. I can't tell you how many times I've traveled with people who forget to eat breakfast or lunch because they're busy or they don't want to deal with it because they don't know where to go. No, not an excuse. Take care of yourself. If you feel better, the travel fatigue will go away much faster. That's what I have noticed when I drink enough water. It isn't so daunting. Weird. Because it seems like, oh, it's a simple thing. Drink water. Well, how many glasses of water have you had today? I have had about 4 ounces. I've had other beverages, coffee and a sparkling tea, but I've not had more water than about 4 ounces. Well, no wonder I'm feeling tired, right? Anyway, sorry, that's my little water moment because I am bad at it and I want to be better at it. Mindfulness. Keep an eye on where you're at mentally. Take a break if you need it. Take a walk, take a sit. Read a book, journal, bring a journal. I am not talking about travel journaling right now because although that is a main topic on this podcast, this is about just journaling for mental health purposes. Maybe it's a gratitude journal that you have and you're grateful for the opportunity to travel, even though you are feeling a little burnt out. Maybe you're grateful for the people you're traveling with. Maybe you're grateful for hosts or people you've met in the location or just the people in general. I feel so incredibly grateful every time I go to Hawaii because the people that we meet are so gracious and so generous and so open with their land and their culture to share it with us. And I feel truly honored to be allowed to share in that. That's a very special thing. And those moments, when I take those moments and step back and go, I'm feeling a little mentally exhausted from all of the preparation to get here. I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to grab my little notebook and I'm going to go get a coffee and sit by the pool and just write for a few minutes. Okay, it doesn't even have to be that elaborate. You can grab your notebook while you're sitting in bed in the morning or at the end of the day and take a moment to journal what happened on that day. I will follow this. Sorry, I just smacked my microphone. Whoops. I will follow this up with my travel journaling series that I have planned, and I haven't decided whether it's going to be 2 or 3 episodes, but I'm going to talk about journaling and travel journaling specifically, how you can document this, but also how you can stave off travel fatigue, how you can stave off frustration and all those things by using a written journal to help you along. Adjust your expectations. This one is a big one. When we travel, we like to have a general idea of where we're going to go and when and how long it's going to take. That doesn't always work out. And it's been important to me to remember to be fluid with this. Unless I have tickets for somewhere, like, for example, going to London and it's late July and I have tickets for the Buckingham Palace tour. Well, I'm going to plan other things that are less strictly timed so that that's one of the 2 or 3 items that we have to be at a certain place at a certain time. For example, I'm working on a travel itinerary for a hypothetical trip to London, Disneyland Paris, and Paris. A couple of those events are to do a tour of Buckingham Palace, because we did that when the Queen was alive and got to see her wardrobe. And I'm curious how things have changed now that it is King Charles's residence. So we have planned that. That is a timed event. Starts at 9:45 in the morning, followed by a tour of the gardens at 11, followed by I think that's it actually. Oh no, followed by, no, that's it. The next day, a free day in London. The day after that, a day at Shakespeare's Globe, where we take a tour in the morning at 10. We do a tour of a tea at 12:30, and then we see a show at 3. Okay, that's a big day. So the next day, I'm going to not plan anything timed. Maybe we'll do the hop-on, hop-off bus tour, right? So that we can be in control of our time. The same thing with Paris. There's, it's like two days at Disneyland Paris. Well, that's kind of already planned out right there. The timing is up to us. We go into Paris. We do a Musée d'Orsay tour. We do a hop-on, hop-off tour, but we keep those fairly fluid because that London section had a number of things that we needed to time, that we had times for. Westminster Abbey, I think, was one of them as well. And that required a timed entrance. So balance it out, that we always leave as much as possible the day after we get there and the day before, at least the afternoon of the day before we leave, unencumbered. So no plans, unless this was a whirlwind, got to get everything in type of trip, which we don't tend to do. We try to keep that first day free and flowing, so that we can pick up groceries if we happen to have a kitchen. We can relax, unpack, get settled into our spaces if we haven't already. Now, when we go to Hawaii, we happen to have a nonstop that gets in about noon. We have most of the day then by the time we get to the hotel. That to me qualifies as that first day. And then the next day I might plan something for in the afternoon so that I do have all of that time to get settled. If I'm only going on a couple-day trip, I don't do this. This is when it's more than 5 days. And the day before we leave, that afternoon and evening, we tend to try to eat at the hotel that night instead of going out for dinner or somewhere nearby that is really easy and that we know really well, just because it sort of eases you back into the routine of coming home. And, most often we don't want our vacations to end, but by the time I get to the end of the trip, very often I'm good. I'm good to go. I've had a great time and I want to go home now, because if I extend it too long, if I take too many days afterwards, it can be even more exhausting. When we took a cruise from Vancouver to San Diego, we spent a couple of days in Vancouver before we left and planned to spend a couple of days in San Diego when we got there. Vancouver was fantastic. It was actually better than our remembrance of the last time we were up there. We just absolutely loved it. We got on the ship. We had a really great cruise. It was mellow. It was fun. It was a Disney cruise, and we had really wonderful cast members that were our servers for dinner, and so we got to know them really well. We had a great time. We get to San Diego. We get there that evening, and we said to each other, what were we thinking? We promised each other we wouldn't do post-cruise days. By the time we're done with the cruise, it's time to come home. We ended up cutting that trip 2 days short and coming home on the next morning instead of staying for 2 days because we were tired. And that was travel fatigue. That was absolutely 100% travel fatigue. So change your plans if you need to. We didn't really lose out on anything. We had flight credit. The hotel, I think we did lose out on the hotel. We used timeshare points, but it wasn't a lot. This was only a couple of nights. And I think we were able to get a flight for about the same price without having to spend really too much extra, even though it was really a quick turnaround. Check out your options. If you start to discover travel fatigue, slow down. Decide not to go do something if you need a break. Journal. Adjust your expectations of what you can accomplish. Now, you want to do a whirlwind tour of Europe. 2 countries, 2 days every country, and do 12 countries. Fabulous. That's amazing. Absolutely do it. But make sure that in there you've got some free time, that the tour allows for some free time. Because while it is really tempting to knock out 12 countries in 24 days, it's also incredibly exhausting. And by the time you get to about country 6 or 7, you might be pretty burned out of travel. Not the tours, not the places, but of actually hopping on that bus, packing your stuff up every 2 days and going. It's part of why I do like cruises, is that I unpack my stuff once and I get to see 5 ports. Right. Connect with others. So this is sort of my last one, and this is where your friends and family that may be traveling with you or are located in that location or are a text message, social media post or email away. Hey, I just wanted to connect with you for a minute. I'm feeling a little fatigued. Can you help me out? I just want to chat, right? Or you have a travel partner. And my husband is my travel partner. And if I were feeling fatigued, I simply would tell him, look, honey, you know what? I'm not sure if I want to go do this today because I'm feeling pretty fatigued over all the traveling we've done. We just did this at Disneyland, actually. We were there for 2 days. We had 2.5 days. We went in Wednesday night. We also were there Thursday and Friday. My granddaughter has discovered the joy of staying near the park and being able to go back to the hotel in the middle of the afternoon for a break. And it's awesome. It works really well. And on Friday, after it had started raining a little bit, we went back to the hotel for some treats and some rest. And we decided as a group that we were kind of good and we didn't go back, which was, unusual for us. But it also was really helpful because we got a chance to unwind before we came home. So the transition back to home was a little less. Granted, it was a short trip. There wasn't a huge transition. But there always is a transition, unpacking, doing laundry, making sure your cats and your plants and your home is all good and the drive home, because we did drive. So connecting can help with that, taking care of yourself, slowing down, having a sit, and not worrying so much about go, 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 go. Because travel fatigue is a real thing. People think, oh, you're just complaining because, you travel so much. And they try to make it sound like a criticism. You have the opportunity to travel that much. It's a blessing. It's a gift. It's something a lot of people would love to be able to do and either don't for whatever reason or can't. And to be able to travel is a blessing and a privilege in a lot of ways. But take care of yourself as well, because it can be exhausting. We have discovered that. So our plan is to back off a little bit, which we had kind of already done before this last trip. We don't really have another big trip planned until November right now. And it is March. So that's a long time. We have a couple of small one-day trips or one or 2 day activities happening. The San Francisco Pen Show is going to be in August. And so we may take a couple of days and do that. We might just do that in one day like we've done in the past. And I know there's more things, little ones here and there. And I believe it has started to rain here in Sacramento. So I just wanted to share that with you, and share with me in the comments if you have experienced any sort of travel fatigue. And it could it's not quite so extreme as I don't want to travel anymore. I'm so done with this. Maybe it's just like, you know what? I need a break. Share with me what happened and what'd you do to help yourself get over that. Get past that. Maybe that's a better way to put that, and get back to traveling again. And if you want to share a little context of how often you travel and, what kind of travel you do, I think that would be great. I would really appreciate it. So as always, I would like to wish you a bon voyage and thank you for listening. I appreciate our times together, and I'm going to do a couple of series coming up. So I hope you look forward to that. Take care, everybody.